The time for policing is over. The slow, decades-long chase of drug smugglers and gangs is done. The United States has faced the clear truth. The drug war was never a crime problem. It was a war. For years, the US government used quiet language. Words like gangs, smugglers, and traffickers described the enemy. Officials spoke of raids, arrests, and the slow grind of the courtroom. But the cartels were not listening. They had moved far beyond crime. They had become armies. The declaration that the United States was now in official armed conflict with cartel forces was not just a change in words. It was the end of one era and the start of a far more dangerous, far more decisive one. The shift did not happen in a single day, but was forced by years of frustration and escalating violence. The cartels themselves drove this change by transforming into hybrid militias. They took control of territory, deployed their own drones, and began to challenge the power of governments across the Americas. They were not disorganized gangs. They were strategic enemies with military reach. The old model had failed. Law enforcement efforts, including arrests, extraditions, and asset seizures, collapsed under the sheer weight of the cartel's militarization. The logic of the courtroom had to be replaced by the logic of the battlefield. The final tipping point that turned crime into war was marked by two undeniable events. First, American intelligence confirmed that cartel networks were coordinating across borders, using military-grade weapons, encrypted communications, and, worst of all, infrastructure, protected by a state actor in Venezuela. U.S. surveillance identified armored convoys, cartel drones scouting for police, and anti-aircraft systems near smuggling zones. Then, the threat became personal. U.S. Marines operating near Puerto Rico reported radar interference. This interference was traced directly back to Venezuelan coastal defense units helping cartel ships. The danger was no longer criminal. It was a clear geopolitical challenge. The final and most humiliating act of cartel arrogance came in mid-2025. Cartel operatives targeted U.S. Coast Guard vessels in the Caribbean and killed multiple American service members. This was a clear message. The cartels were no longer defending drug routes, they were attacking the United States. This was the line crossed. The response was immediate and decisive. The White House invoked the language of self-defense under international law, citing the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. That phrase changed everything. By labeling the cartels as terrorist entities, the U.S. reclassified them from simple fugitives to legitimate enemies. This act unlocked military power that had been held back for decades. Arrest warrants became target packages, and search operations became strikes. The legal foundation for this new war mirrored the framework used against Al-Qaeda and ISIS after September 11th. It allowed for lethal, preemptive action, treating the cartels not as criminals to be prosecuted, but as combatants to be neutralized. The Department of Defense, or Pentagon, was given the primary role in operations that had once belonged to the DEA or the FBI.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
For the first time, the Pentagon treated these criminal organizations as true wartime adversaries. The cartels had made this shift inevitable. They were assassinating politicians, ambushing police convoys, and even using surface-to-air missiles. These were acts indistinguishable from an insurgency. When cartels choose to act like an army, they will be treated like one. The preparation for this campaign was meticulous. The Pentagon's goal was blunt: crush the cartel infrastructure, not just seize drugs. This was a network-centric approach, treating the cartels as complex military systems. Decades of arresting leaders had proven pointless. They were simply replaced. The new solution was to treat them like insurgents, break their command, disrupt their financing, and destroy their forces outright. This was counterterrorism by another name. Within weeks of the enemy's attack on U.S. service members, the administration authorized the first kinetic strikes under the new classification. The message was delivered with absolute, overwhelming force. Drone footage later confirmed it. An American Reaper missile instantly obliterated a Cartel speedboat off the Venezuelan coast. The tone of the new war had been set. The time for talking, for slow legal maneuvering, was finished. The new military doctrine redefines American power in the Western Hemisphere. It skips large-scale invasions and relies on overwhelming precision and speed. The operations are built around intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, air dominance, stealth aircraft, like the F-35 fighter jets, were brought into the Caribbean theater. They conduct electronic warfare to blind cartel communications. The MQ-9 Reaper drones provide the eyes, giving real-time imagery and executing precision strikes. This is an integrated web of omnipresence. Sea control. Guided missile destroyers and other naval assets enforce absolute maritime exclusion zones. The U.S. Navy fields counter-drone interceptors like the Coyote, small loitering drones that can pursue and instantly neutralize hostile cartel UAVs in midair. Cartels that once used simple consumer drones now face a swarm war they cannot win. Silence returns to the sky within seconds of a cartel drone taking flight. Special operations, special forces units, including Joint Special Operations Command, GSOC assets like Navy SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force, can now conduct covert raids deep into cartel camps in the Venezuelan and Colombian jungles. These operators are fast, lethal, and unrelenting, transforming police work into warfare. The intelligence community has merged its surveillance systems into a single counter-cartel framework. Signals intelligence tracks every encrypted communication. Cyber analysts monitor dark web transactions and cartel crypto payments. All this data fuses into dynamic kill lists, living documents that are updated hourly. This creates an invisible net that tightens around leadership figures before they even realize they are marked. The campaign against the cartel hierarchy is now a decapitation strategy. Every movement, every conversation, every convoy could trigger an instant strike order. The goal is to remove the head and paralyze the body, causing fragmentation and collapse. The target list includes not just the leaders, but also the financiers, the accountants, and the digital bankers who run the money.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
The military can now strike the financial nodes, the bloodstream of the cartel. With the same urgency, it hits a jungle compound. In the modern battle space, a seized ledger can be more decisive than a missile. The effects of this decisive action are already clear. Major trafficking corridors in the Caribbean have gone dark. Cartel leaders who once flaunted their power now live as fugitives. They are abandoning coastal operations and fleeing inland. Leadership, once a symbol of prestige, has become a death sentence. The psychological humiliation is pervasive. Under the immense pressure of constant surveillance and the threat of precision strikes, the cartels are falling apart from within. Internal purges rise. Commanders accuse each other of being intelligence informants. Alliances fracture under the weight of fear and paranoia. What were once disciplined organizations are now disintegrating. Their paranoia mirrors that of ISIS and Al-Qaeda leaders during their peak years under drone surveillance. They used to fear a police raid. Now, they fear the silence of the night sky. That is the cold, total precision of battlefield targeting. The myth of cartel invincibility, built on decades of impunity, is being shattered head-on. They built their empires on the assumption that the U.S. would stay bound by the slow machinery of law enforcement. That assumption has proven fatal. The immunity provided by political distance and jurisdictional complexity has vanished. Sovereignty is no longer a shield when a group is recognized as a global armed threat. Every destroyed convoy, every intercepted vessel is broadcast as evidence of American momentum and unmatched capability. The U.S. is projecting power instantly, anywhere. The enemy, once the architects of chaos, now finds itself hunted by a system built for total precision. This campaign is not built on random brutality, but on professional restraint. The U.S. military operates under strict rules of engagement, ROE. These rules are the line separating disciplined soldiers from the chaos they confront. They demand restraint, even in the most tense moments. When a soldier is faced with a chaotic scene, they follow a procedure: shout, show, shove, and shoot only when absolutely necessary. They will disengage, reposition, and wait if a child runs into the street or a civilian car appears. They choose the harder right over the easier wrong. This commitment to law preserves the nation's moral credibility, and it is the ultimate show of professionalism. It is proof that the U.S. military's purpose is not conquest, but control. Control over its own immense power. Any force can destroy, but few can distinguish. When a U.S. soldier hesitates before pulling a trigger, it is not doubt. It is discipline forged by law and experience. That restraint, in the end, is what separates U.S. forces from the men they fight. The success of this strategy is measured by the absence of unnecessary death. This transforms restraint into strength and legality into strategy. The shift is irreversible. U.S. military bases in Puerto Rico, Curacao, and southern Florida are now central command hubs for the largest counter-narcotics operation in modern history. The United States has crossed the threshold of toleration. The violence and corruption of the cartels had made them a parallel power, challenging the state itself. The law reached its limit, and war filled the vacuum. Every drone strike, every naval blockade, every mission success carries the same truth. The United States is no longer policing a problem. It is fighting an enemy. This escalation is not without risk, but it is a war of necessity. The sheer scale of cartel violence and the flow of synthetic opioids killing thousands of Americans annually demanded a decisive response. By declaring the cartels armed adversaries, Washington reframes the drug crisis not as a moral failure, but as an invasion by organized, militarized networks. What began as a regional conflict now influences global policy. Other nations are watching how Washington justifies military action against non-state criminal groups. This precedent, using the terrorist designation to authorize armed conflict, could reshape international norms. The United States is defending its actions as exceptional, citing the scale of violence and the cartel's cross-border coordination. This new model is a hybrid warfare doctrine where economics, ideology, and crime merge. The cartels, who counted on ambiguity to survive, are now hunted by a system that has defined them clearly, a network of enemies. The question is no longer whether the United States can reach them, but how long they can survive once the full spectrum of American power is focused on their destruction. The mission remains the same: decapitate, disrupt, and dismantle until the empire of fear collapses from within. The United States has deployed its full military apparatus, air power, special forces, and intelligence to eliminate threats once thought untouchable. For the cartels, this is an existential reckoning. The battlefield has changed, and the United States has declared that its war has officially begun. This is controlled dominance, leaving no doubt about who is in charge. This takedown was just the start. The fight isn't finished. On your screen is the next video. Click the video, it opens right away, and you'll see the cartels crushed even harder.